Hi, I'm Michelle Sterling for Friends of Science Society. Some people say that dissenting views on climate change or the climate crisis are not legitimate because they never appear in the mainstream press. Few people understand the lockout mentality of journalists and publishers. Here's a recent example. On October 1st, 2020, we got a press request about various tweets of ours that challenged the claims of climate change as the driver of the California and Oregon wildfires. The journal said she was a freelance science writer doing an article for SLATE. Her bio showed she had written for many prestigious magazines. So we optimistically sent along a plethora of scientific information on wildfires to the science writer journalist and boldly included a plea that she push SLATE to also use its media platform for the public good. We suggested they reference how people could protect themselves, their property, and neighbors by promoting the information provided by the National Fire Protection Association and FIREWISE. The journal seemed overly concerned that the Friends of Science Twitter account had idly retweeted a tweet that was apparently from a fake Twitter account that suggested Antifa was behind the lighting of fires in Oregon. Arson and accidental or negligent activity are significant human-caused factors in wildfires. Many commentators, including Andy Ngo, linked some of these fires to arsonists, as did police. So we sent this graph from the Oregon Department of Forestry to the science writer, showing that you don't have to be Antifa to light fires. As can be seen by the thin turquoise line in the graph, human-caused wildfires in Oregon far outstrip those caused by lightning, and this has been the case for decades. Likewise, this graph showing the causes of fires in California. We provided a map from CAL FIRE of extreme fire risk areas, an image of paradise before the horrific campfire, showing that fire safety mitigation measures were not observed, and a link to this sad editorial where the people of paradise themselves recognized that a catastrophic event like campfire was a known risk and mitigation measures had not been taken. We sent information from our wildfire forestry expert explaining how after a warm, wet winter in California, you get a huge explosion of herbaceous vegetation that cures quickly and remains standing. This results in fuel loads that are triple for these sites. Remember that fire intensity is proportional to the amount of fuel and that the head fire intensity, or heat, is a function of the fourth power of biomass. So what's even worse is that this fuel remains standing, cured. This is known as cribbing. Cribbing creates an air-rich fuel bed that is prone to high probability of ignition and extremely rapid proliferation, such as 3-meter-tall mustard. Just add a spark and a Santa Ana wind, and you have a catastrophe. Nothing to do with human-caused climate change. We also provided the Science Journal with an article by Mason et al., 2006, on the value of forest fuel load reduction in mitigating wildfire destruction. SLATE, or the journal, must have rejected that science, and too bad, because SLATE could have scooped NBC, which on October 18, 2020, published an article on the value of fuel load management and prescribed burns in mitigating wildfire risk. So the journal was curious about us retweeting this map, showing that wildfires had stopped at the border. Canada had a very low wildfire season this year, mostly due to climatic conditions and, ironically, the COVID lockdowns. Hundreds of wildfires in BC and Alberta in recent years have been started by humans. The Slave Lake wildfire of 2011 in Alberta was arson. This year, it was very quiet. We sent along these 2 wildfire risk maps, one being that of when the Fort McMurray wildfire took off. These fire risk dangers sometimes fluctuate on a daily basis, but you can see the difference. But the science writer was fixated on the retweet of a fake Twitter account, a couple of Q people retweets, and whether or not we're funded by big oil. We tried to offer the science writer all the relevant information to provide complete, fair, and accurate news for SLATE readers, just as Donald Graham, chairman of the board of Graham Holdings, the owner of SLATE, has promised investors and stakeholders. The materials we offered respond to a matter of significant public concern to people on both sides of the border, particularly in light of the tragic deaths of so many people and the mass destruction of whole communities. Sadly, the SLATE article was just a bunch of fluff, calling us the predictable climate deniers, and that we found a conspiracy theory about how wildfires start. West Coast state or municipal government leaders who are beating the drum on human-caused climate change and chasing carbon dioxide molecules instead of managing wildfire risks are doing a great disservice to taxpayers and leaving citizens, often helpless, in harm's way. The media pumping the climate catastrophe narrative rather than the science of wildfires and practical methods of mitigation is acting against the public good. If you'd like to see what we sent the journalist in terms of scientific material on wildfire, the email to her and related images is published on our blog. For Friends of Science Society, I'm Michelle Sterling.